Coastal Championship Wrestling, Saturday, February 10th at the Coral Springs Charter School Gym. Another big show, and with this big show, we have one of Ohio's finest. Mr. Al Snow is going to be on the show. Al, what are your thoughts about coming down to South Florida for this CCW show?
Well, I love coming down to South Florida, one, because of the weather. I mean, let's face it, it ain't that nice in Ohio right now. And I love the fans. I mean, they're awesome, man. I mean, if it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't get to do what we love to do for a living, and I can't thank every wrestling fan out there enough for supporting wrestling and supporting me, because trust me, I don't want to work for a living.
You've done indie shows. You've done all types of shows. You've been on the biggest stages. You've been on small stages. What is it like for you at this point in your career, traveling around and doing indie shows like CCW?
I still love it. I mean, I really, truly, absolutely love it. And because if I didn't, I wouldn't do it. I don't need to. I just really enjoy it. It's always been a passion for me. And, it's one thing, I tell people all the time that it's one thing for you to go out in front of 60,000 people. It's an event. And it's almost easier to tell your story and emotionally connect with that audience of 60-some thousand people than it is. It's more of a challenge, and that's why I enjoy it so much, to go to a small show. It's an intimate venue. Sometimes, they're well-lit buildings, and, there's not that psychology of anonymity that works in your favor at the 60,000-seat arena. Because, the audience they're very self-aware, and they know that their neighbor can see them across the ring. So it takes a lot more for you to figure out what makes them tick and really get them caught up in the story and have them enjoy themselves for the night. And I love that. That's part of the fun for me. That's part of the excitement.
Al, you're also going to be involved in South Florida in a seminar on February 9th at the Main Event Training Center in Fort Lauderdale, which is where talent then goes on to perform for CCW.
Yes.
Tell us about the seminar and doing things like that.
Well, I enjoy that too, just as much as I do wrestling, because it's an opportunity for me to kind of give back to the wrestling business that I've had a career in for 36 years. I mean, it's just been, I'm so blessed to have gotten to do what I love to do for as long as I've gotten to do it. And, it's an opportunity to work with the young talent. And, I think that whatever legacy, if I have any in wrestling, when I'm done, will be all of the people that I've trained and helped, take advantage of opportunities that have presented themselves, and, let them live their dreams as best as they can. And, a lot of the wrestlers will show up, and they want you to, give them the key to unlock the door to success. And I really try to let them benefit from all of my years of experience. Let them benefit from where I've made my mistakes so they don't make theirs. And trust me, I've made plenty. So they get a wealth of knowledge because I've made a wealth of mistakes.
And you've made a wealth of wise decisions and good choices as well.
Well, yeah, I've made a fair amount of those too, but the tally board sometimes doesn't balance out. So, but it's definitely, I encourage, wrestlers all the time, young wrestlers, to attend any seminar they can go to, work on their craft, ask questions, because the only dumb questions are the ones they don't ask. Never be afraid to make mistakes, because that's the way you learn. And invest time, money, and effort in themselves, because they're asking the promoter to invest his time, money, and effort in them. And they're asking, more importantly, the audience to invest their time, money, and effort in seeing them. So make it worth that investment, that effort, and that time, by doing the same for yourself. And that right there is the key to success.
And if you're going to go to a seminar, Al Snow has worn so many hats, not just inside the ring, but behind the scenes as well. You've done so much in your career and continue to do more. You're a guy from Ohio, and it just amazes me, Al, because so many wrestlers, it seems like, have come from Ohio. What is it about Ohio?
Well, you know, historically, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania, they were always big money territories, especially Michigan and Ohio. You know, they were great because you had major cities, Toledo, Dayton, Cincinnati. Those were all right down I-75 and were several hours apart. And back in the day, without the internet and cable television, I mean, you had a unique audience that was, you know, in all three of those cities. You know, and they were major cities. Then you had Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, and Akron that were all hours apart and were also major metropolitan cities, which meant that you were able to draw very large audiences. Michigan, same situation, because that was all in that Rust Belt, you know, the automotive industry, and you know, people had money and were employed very well at that point in time, and you know, it was the birthplace for a lot of great wrestlers and a lot of great wrestling for many years.
Al, you've seen so much in your time outside the ring, just how things have changed with fans. You talked about the days of the territories, and then it just evolved from there. Now we're in this, we've gone 180 with social media. What's it been like for you transitioning from all these different chapters of how we're watching and how we're talking about and learning about pro wrestling?
You know, professional wrestling has been and always will be a mirror of society. The only thing that has changed about professional wrestling is that it must be produced and presented and performed on a much higher level of sophistication, simply because your audience is so much more sophisticated. I mean, let's face it, Jim. I mean, a 10-year-old today is you know, as sophisticated as what we were when we were like 20. You know, because they just have so much access to information so easily, thanks to the internet, thanks to social media. But the audience intrinsically is still exactly the same as it was in 1972, in the sense that when an audience member pays their money to watch professional wrestling, in 1972, that audience member knew, I promise you, knew that professional wrestling was predetermined. And that ultimately is the only thing that is, quote-unquote, if you want to use that misnomer, fake about professional wrestling, is the intent behind what's done in the ring. In 2018, that audience member is paying a ticket to believe in the exact same thing that the audience member was in 1972, which is that the outcome, even though he knows it's predetermined, it has gravity, it has consequence. It's a competitive situation, and it means something for one person to win and another person to lose. And both combatants are trying to do everything they can to prevent that loss and to gain that victory. And that's never changed, but the production of it, the presentation of it, the performance of that has to evolve as far as its level of sophistication, because as I said, the level of sophistication of the audience has increased, you know, tenfold. So it makes it more of a challenge, but it can be done, and that audience wants that. They desperately want to come and even for, if nothing more, for 10 seconds while you're out there, believe just for a split second, you know, they're really trying to beat each other. And if you can get them to do that and get them to emotionally connect, and you know, then they're going to have an experience that, to be quite honest, you can't get in any other form of entertainment. They're just, if you've never been to a live wrestling event, I promise you, it's an incredible experience, especially when it's done right. It's so much fun to sit in that audience and just to take it all in and be a part of the energy of the audience and the wrestlers and the entire event itself. And CCW, I mean, it's a family-friendly show. I mean, you can bring your kids, you can bring your grandparents, you can bring everybody and just come out and have a great time. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, that's the thing. You can't